If you've been teaching 10 or more years, keep your hands up.
Yeah.
Can you stand? Can you stand? Raise your hands. So I realized today that I used to teach middle school. I taught middle school for 3 years. I worked as a TA in elementary school for 2 years. And I realized that I'm losing my touch, right? I feel like as a teacher, you're able to handle, like, kids annoy you, right? Sometimes some kids kind of piss you off. Am I allowed to say piss you off? Right? Sometimes kids make you mad. And as a teacher, right, you kind of become immune to it. You become used to it. You have to take it. Today, I went to my niece's soccer game and I almost got into a fight with the 11-year-old. Like, on the real, she was like shoving people, elbowing people. And she walked past me and I was like, I see you, 11. I see you, 11. Don't. And she was shoving folks. And I really almost got into a fight. So then I had to calm down, and I realized, like, dang, our teachers are legit. Like, you guys do such amazing work, and even when it's hard, and even when students are doing some crazy things in your classrooms, you're holding it down. So for our first storyteller today, Mr. Bill Heisler, he's been teaching for 13 years, y'all. Teaching high school for 13 years. He probably wants to fight every day. Thank you, Bill. And of course, in his first year, he claims that he was terrible, but we were all terrible, let's be honest. I cried every day my first year in the Corps. Who was with me? Who was crying every day? Who drank a lot of wine in their first year? Hey, what's up? Who ate a lot of donuts and gained 20 pounds? Me? Thank you. I'm not alone. But Bill stuck with it. And he was Green Dot's Teacher of the Year. Can we give it up for Bill right now? In addition to being a kick-butt teacher, he's a husband, he's a father. Let's give it up for 2003 LA Corps member Bill Heisler.
Let's go, Heis.
Good evening. I am not a doctor. To be one of those highly esteemed professionals, you have to go to school for an extra 4 years after college before they give you the title of MD. And I assume that in those 4 years, they try to prepare you for just about any sort of injury, ailment, or illness that you might come across. And that system of training seems very practical to me, because doctors are responsible for the lives of others, and it's important that they're knowledgeable and capable before treating patients. I'm a teacher. I spent 5 weeks living in a USC dorm while busing over to teach summer school in a cohort with 2 other new clueless TFAers, and that was good enough to give me my emergency credential. Now, this title certified me to be responsible for the education and livelihood of American school children in my very own classroom. And I must have been ready, because I was hired after like 10 minutes of my first interview at Gompers Middle School. Any Gompers people out there? Yeah. Now, this system of teacher training is highly efficient at getting eager, aspiring teachers into some of the most difficult classrooms across this country. It is not so efficient at preparing us to be successful in those classrooms. And put bluntly, you're going to suck your first year. And to be fair, I learned a whole lot at Institute. I am the teacher I am today, in part because of Teach for America. I am forever grateful for the opportunity. It's just a whole lot more fun to talk about the stuff they didn't prepare me for. Now, when I realized how unprepared I was to have my own classroom, which I think was 8:01 a.m. on the first day of school, I did what a lot of first-year teachers do. I relied on my mentor teacher. Now, he didn't speak the same language as TFA, he didn't adhere to the school's policies and guidelines, but his kids sat in their seats, they listened, they seemed to learn. In my mind, that topped all my other training. Case in point, the "you can't touch me" dilemma. Me, sit down, please. Student, no, I'm leaving. Me, you can't leave. Student, yes, I can. You can't fucking touch me. Student walks out. Class erupts in laughter. Me, wondering which page in the teacher manual that scenario was on. Realizing it wasn't, wondering how I'm supposed to teach the rest of the class who don't respect me and clearly shouldn't because I was just publicly humiliated by a 12-year-old. Enter my mentor teacher and the backpack solution. Now, technically, the backpack is not the student. So when a 12-year-old puts you in the unfortunate situation of having to stop them from leaving the class, you simply grab the backpack and calmly guide them back to their seat. Or you hold said backpack and the attached student and continue teaching the class as if nothing is happening. Now, when my mentor teacher told me he did this for a good 10 minutes with a kid in his second period, I realized there were some things that Teach for America couldn't, and in this case probably shouldn't teach me, that only experience could. Now, especially first-year teachers, I am not promoting the backpack strategy to any of you. All I can tell you is when I couldn't manage my class first year, I used it several times. I also stood on top of my desk screaming at the top of my lungs to a room full of 12-year-olds. So let's just be clear, the first year of any job is probably hard, The first year of teaching has got to be near the top of the list for most difficult environment imaginable. And if I wasn't yet prepared to be a teacher, I certainly wasn't qualified to be a child counselor. But as you know, we oftentimes have to play that role as well. So early in my first year, a small scuffle broke out between a young lady with severe emotional distress and a young man with a history of fighting and defiance. And she thought they were playing around when she slapped him across the face with a handful of lotion. He was actually incredibly mature and avoided losing his cool. Not yet a master of child counseling, I decided to use this teachable moment to educate both students. I held them after class to discuss what had happened. Now in my mind, this is going to be a win-win and a great day for all three of us. I would win some cool points with the young man for praising his restraint and making the young lady apologize. And I would help teach the young lady a valuable lesson not to mess with kids you really don't know that well. And I would know that I did my job de-escalating a potentially volatile situation without any violence or punitive disciplinary action. Great job, Mr. H. Here's what actually happened. The young man had no interest in staying after class, so I employed the aforementioned backpack solution. The young lady was giggling hysterically and not really getting all my wonderful insight that might save her life in the future. When I explained to the gentleman that I was on his side and just trying to help him out, he responded with, "Who the fuck are you?" I did not calmly reply, "I am your teacher." I sure wish I had. I decided to meet him at the middle school level of maturity and replied with, "Who the fuck am I? Who the fuck are you little shit?" Oh. Much like that day, I suddenly had a captive audience, but I think the teachable moment ship had sailed. As they stared blankly back at me, I tried to regain my composure, end our little intervention session, and thank them for their time. Praying this was the end of my least professional moment to date, I opened the door to let them out and saw my 3:30 parent conference. Neither of the adults spoke any English, but their faces made it perfectly clear they understood what had just transpired. Last time I ever cursed at a kid. Learn from your mistakes. And the last piece I'll share that exemplifies what TFA couldn't prepare me for is coverage. Now, coverage is another word that was nowhere to be found in my teacher training, but quickly became part of my daily existence. For anyone that teaches in a school filled with high turnover and high absenteeism, you will come to loathe this word. Coverage means you just lost your prep period. And in the infinite wisdom of seniority, it is the new teachers who bear the lion's share of this responsibility. Now, prep period is sacred time. It's supposed to be spent making copies, grading papers, developing my sweet first-year lesson plans, meeting with parents, meeting with staff. Oh, that first year it's also commonly spent hiding, crying, and binge eating. Unless you have fucking coverage. Now, coverage got so bad at my first school that one of my fellow rookie colleagues used to just have his VCR and television card and a couple movies and roll it to whatever classroom he was covering and pop in a movie. And I said VCR, okay? I'm that freaking old. But that was his means of survival, and the school did nothing to stop him. I mean, what are they going to say? Stick to the lesson plan? What lesson plan? I just wish he had better taste in movies, because you better believe I borrowed that card on multiple occasions. And it turns out Roll Bounce? Much better movie than the critics would have you believe. Unbelievable performance by Little Bow Wow. Is it just Bow Wow now? Either way, he was sublime. But like all less than ideal experiences that first year, I was able to learn a valuable lesson from one of my coverages. It was here that I began the practice of character building with Mr. H. "Fuck you, cracker," said the young scholar when I refused to let him into the room I was covering. Today, I was fortunate enough to have been left a list with names. And by now it was March, so I didn't fall victim to the hordes of students that prey on substitute rooms. I was a seasoned vet of coverage at this point. And like the VIP clubs, if your name wasn't on the list, you weren't getting in. My man was not on the list. "Fuck you, cracker," he repeated as he flipped me the bird and walked away. I think he'd been sneaking in to hang out with a young lady that caught his eye. Oh, not today, my friend. Not on Mr. H's watch. And while I was used to being disrespected and insulted on a pretty much hourly basis that first year, this particular offense was a little too egregious to let slide. I couldn't chase after him. I had a class to cover. I didn't know who he was. There were like 1,800 kids in that school, and I knew none of the students would tell me his name because snitches get stitches, son. But if I was going to teach this young man anything, I was going to have to practice some patience of my own. A couple days went by before I saw him crossing the yard, oblivious to my stealth surveillance. I quickly found an 8th grade teacher to get his name. Let's call him Shad. Anyone know why Shad? It's Bow Wow's real name, that's correct. Once I found out what room Shad was supposed to be in during my prep, I waited till the next day I didn't have coverage, which, shit, may have been a week. When I opened the door to his 8th grade English class, his jaw dropping told me he remembered our last encounter, even if he hadn't thought about it since. Only one of us had stayed up nights trying to make sense of it. Only one of us had been devising a plan to remedy the situation. But today, we were both going to see it through. I escorted her back to my class without any small talk, trying to unnerve Shad a bit, but also trying to keep my cool. I mean, last time we met, he held all the cards, and he played the only hand he knew. anger, defiance, hostility. We were playing on my home court now, and I was hoping to serve up some novel concepts. Forgiveness, understanding, kindness. Hello, Shad. My name's Mr. Heisler. I extended my hand. Confused, he shook it and waited for me to do what he was used to. Yell at him, threaten him, punish him, all the stuff that hadn't worked before. I told him perhaps he'd called me that derogatory insult because he didn't know my name. Now that he knew my name, I hoped he wouldn't call me anything I don't appreciate anymore. I assured him I would never call him anything outside of his name, except 15 years from then when I would refer to him as Shad in a room full of TFAers and friends. I told him we'd be meeting like this once a week or so to discuss the motivation behind his actions that I found so objectionable. I told him I wanted to get to know him better. I told him I thought he was better than my first impression. He asked if I was going to suspend him. He asked if I was going to give him detention. But then he asked where I was from. Philly. How long had you been a teacher? About 7 months. Do I have any brothers or sisters? 3 brothers, 1 sister. And I got to ask him questions about his family and his interests. And a couple weeks later, I got a phone call from his sister to thank me. Apparently, Shad had been having a real tough time at school and found some value in our little character-building sessions. Now, I have no idea what happened to Shad. This story doesn't have a fairy tale ending with him inviting me to his Harvard graduation and he attributed all of his successes in life to me. But I do know that for a brief period of time, I was able to help a kid out because I chose a route different than the standard punishment that they're used to. And that is precisely what they try to teach you and instill in you at Teach for America. And no 5-week institute can teach you all these lessons. And it's just one of many lessons I learned as a rookie in one of the toughest schools in Los Angeles. But from that fateful day of coverage, if a student ever crosses the line in my room, our resolution will not be a public reprimand or detention or suspension. It'll be a one-on-one conversation sometime after class, perhaps during my prep period. I'm a senior teacher now. I don't have to cover nearly as much. Suck it, rookies. I'm just kidding, rookies. We love you. It gets better. Hang in there. Thank you.